All right, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today to learn about the first of three very important discussions to have when it comes to building an effective remote work team. My name is Mark Tippin. I'm the head of services with Mural, and my co-host today is Hailey Temple, who's a services lead with Mural. We developed this series and ran it last week to help teams who find themselves suddenly remote orient and have important discussions, not only about the tools, but also about the mindset that you need to build psychological safety and team trust, and then the methods that you can use to build important teams. Our session this morning, we're doing in a European time zone friendly way to make sure that our other customers and constituents and interested people who have been recently affected by events have access to this information as well. This first broadcast will be live, but the second two, we're going to give you links and you can watch them at your leisure. I'd like to hand things over to Hailey, who will kick us off this morning.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Hi, everyone. And we appreciate you joining from wherever you are in the world to spend this time with us and explore what it means to be suddenly remote. Let's make the most of our time together. And I want to start by giving us a chance to take a deep breath. So wherever you are in the world right now, let's take a deep breath together. Breathe in, inhale, and exhale. That feels good. Whew.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, it's nice to take that. I imagine you guys have been possibly running around in meetings this morning trying to figure out what to do, and it's important to remember that you're not alone. We are here to help, and as a community now working online, we can support one another. And we want to make sure we do that by answering your questions. So we'll have this first 30 minutes together to share some of our thoughts with you, but then we're going to stay on the line to answer any of your questions. So you'll see in Zoom, there's a Q&A tab. Make sure you put your questions in there, and Mary and Mark and I will be capturing them and answering them as we go. Also, use the chat to share your thoughts or helpful information with one another. If there are links to information that you have that you want to share, feel free to put it in the chat, and that's a great place for us to be able to populate that on this canvas as well. And then, of course, if you or a teammate you know is sick or a family member, make sure you're getting the rest you need. Working from home does not mean it's okay to work when you're feeling ill. So make sure that you are respecting yourself, you're a person first, and that you're taking that time to rest. All right. So, of course, we have a lot of reasons to be here today. A big one right now is, of course, there are travel disruptions that are preventing face-to-face meetings. This can happen in a normal time, but it's, of course, much more intense right now. Health concerns are also keeping a lot of us out of the office. So we're looking at remote work as an option for a second best way to stay connected. But we also realize that the way that work happens is changing. Cultures are changing to allow more flexible work schedules, and we're being able to work from anywhere. So maybe this is also a great opportunity to explore what a flexible environment would look like for your team. So that's what our series is here to help you accomplish. I want to tell you a little bit about this series. Mark mentioned this is one of 3 webinars that we hosted last week. And we wanted to have this first one for you where we're going to cover tools and capabilities. But we really think about 3 elements of remote work that help you accomplish the goals of a team or accomplish goals in a meeting. There's the tools and capabilities, what we'll really be covering today. There's teams and trust, where in the second webinar, we talk about team shapes, how to build a sense of community and a sense of social connection, even when you're spread out around the world. And then in the final one, we talk about techniques and methods. Just because you're not in the same room doesn't mean your meeting has to be disengaging or boring. We really believe that there are great methods out there to make remote work successful, and that's what you'll see in webinar 3. And
Puppy dog agrees.
Sorry?
Puppy dog agrees
I
with you.
know, he's like, come on, man.
You can do
All
it.
right, so here's what you'll get from this series. We're gonna give you this link to the canvas that we're showing you right now. This is actually, if I zoom out, a whole mural canvas, and you'll get a link to this after our session. You'll also get the video recordings, and we'll share the link to them, the replays to not only this session, but also the other 2 webinars. You'll get your questions answered about remote work. And if you are brand new to Mural, we invite you to join us. Whoop. We invite you to join us for 90 days where you can use Mural for free when it's usually 30 days. So with that, Mark, I'm gonna have you jump into the capabilities.
All right, sounds good. Yeah, we're all adjusting to new ways to work here. And we frame this in terms of conversations, 3 conversations to have. And some of you have probably identified certain tools that you're using as a team, but we often overlook evaluating them in terms of the job they need to do for us as remote workers. So the time we have together is really going to be diving in a little bit deeper on these 5 capabilities. So instead of just listing logos on the things that this team uses or that team uses, we really want to take a step back and look at the capabilities you need. The first one is the ability to communicate in real time. Right, this is how we can come together at the same time, in real time, see each other, communicate, share visually, that type of thing. The second mode of conversation that we need is around communicating asynchronously. Right? And if you think about it, there are a lot of tools today. Some of them are on our desktops, like Slack or Teams or threaded chat, but many teams also use something as simple as text and SMS, right? So what we're talking about here is just the way in which you can ask a question when it's convenient or when it's top of mind for you, put it out into your community or to a specific person, and then they can get to it when they need to, right? So it's very different from we're all going to be in the same place at the same time talking in real time, identifying the ways or the specific ways your team is going to agree to have those asynchronous communications. The third type is around sharing content. No matter what tools we use, we have all sorts of assets and documents and deliverables, prototypes, things that that are the products of our work, and we need to have an agreement as a team around where we're going to put that stuff. A lot of wasted time and frustration can happen when people are just not aware how to find something, or when they're done something, where to put it where everyone can get to it, right? So that's an important conversation to have. The fourth capability is how do you stay organized, right? When you come together and you have these real-time discussions, or you've got these threaded discussions, you need a place where the team can look and see the agreements, the action items, the tasks, whatever you want to call it, the things that you've agreed need to get done. How do they get organized? How does the whole team maintain their status on those things, and how does everyone understand if circumstances change, or if you need to pivot, where is that kind of one source of truth around the work that you're doing? The last capability, and the one that we're very passionate about here at Mural, is equal on these other ones. Remote teams need a place to think visually together. And I think this is why many of you are here today looking at the context of Mural, is because this works in communion with these other tools to allow teams not only just to see each other, but to have a way to co-create and build meaning together. And that's what we're going to take a look at. I'll dive us into the first tool, and then we'll kind of alternate back and forth. The first tool we're going to look at is the capability, or the tool that provides us a capability for communicating in real time, right? So why is this important? Well, it creates engagement. If you've been on video conferences where all the cameras are off, and you're new to working remotely, this can feel like you're very isolated and very, very passive and removed from the conversation. So take advantage of the cameras, take advantage of the ability to see each other, and be aware that some of your roommates who might be experiencing remote work for the first time really rely on some social social interaction that suddenly isn't there because they're working in a remote way. Just be sensitive to the fact that seeing a smiling face or seeing a coworker, it's not as good as being in the same room, but it really helps bridge the gap and get a sense of presence, right? And it's a gift to give someone presence and actually show up and know that that you're not in another tab or off doing something else. You're really there and present as a team. Efficiency, right? Sometimes if you've sent an email back and forth between, an email thread of 5 people, sometimes just hopping onto a quick conference call can sort out a lot of crossed threads and mixed signals and clarify things really quickly and efficiently. And using a tool, at Mural we use Zoom, but using a tool like this, it doesn't have to be only in the context of a full half-hour meeting or hour meeting. We use it all the time when maybe there's a threaded discussion in our group chat tool, and we just drop in a link, hop into a little real-time conversation for a couple seconds, iron things out, and then the conversation goes away, right? So we don't have to always use these tools in the context of a big formal meeting with lots of people being invited. Again, that human connection is really important. So how do you activate this? If you've got the tool, how do you actually really make it work for you as a team? Well, as you see in the video loop we've got there, this is what a typical meeting inside our company looks like. And we see each other. If we ask a question, if I'm facilitating a session and I need to know, am I on track? Is this making sense? Are we all ready to go? People don't need to hunt for their mute button, unmute, and just to say yes. They can just thumbs up to the camera, right? Or give me a second, or some other hand signal. It's a really useful way to use that nonverbal communication and to get used to using it as an effective channel of communication cameras on. Sharing that smile, really being present, is a very impactful way to help build this sense of community and presence with each other. And sharing, you can use it in novel ways. We have lots of silly little rituals at the end of meetings. Sometimes we'll just end the meeting with a funny face, or we have a simple warm-up exercise, which is share something that you happen to have on your desk, right? And someone will hold up and say well, I happen to have a time timer here, and we share a little bit, and we get a sense of beyond just the work and the tasks, we get a little sense of how people and share tips and tricks. So I really encourage you to really embrace it as a way to build community for your teams. The images below just show what we often do. In addition to seeing each other in video, we also do screen sharing, which in our case, most of the time we're using in screen sharing Mural, but sometimes we're reviewing a design and people might be sharing it out of their particular design tools or whatever. But really, screen sharing is a great way to not only see each other, but also see the context of what we're talking about. All right, Hailey, what's next? Oh, yeah, sorry.
I was gonna say, Andrea said that she's calling from Italy. She said hand communication is important to Italian. So this will be Italy, just a natural part of your work.
Absolutely, very important.
Yes. All right, so let's talk about asynchronous communication. And this is the second most important in my mind. We're talking about essentials. And Lucky agrees, very important. That's Lucky, our special guest here today. So asynchronous communication really helps you, if you're not meeting in real time in meetings, it helps you stay connected, especially when you're working across time zones. So we use asynchronous communication as a way to get information, to share information, especially if not everybody's on the same work schedule, where their 9 to 5 or whatever their working hours are different. It also is a great way to keep information flowing if somebody is not in the same time zone as you are. So somebody can jump on, leave their workday, and the next coworker can jump back on, and they can pick up where they left off. It's a really awesome productivity hack if you are working with people in different locations. And then we really use it for community as well. We don't just talk about work in our asynchronous channels. We also try and make it a moment to celebrate our similarities as people and to make those connections. So how do you use it? make sure you're asking before you forget. Mark and I even will be on meetings in real time. And if we have an action item or a question we need to follow up with, then we will put it into Slack and be able to ask somebody so that we know they can get back to us as soon as possible.
Yeah, I'd like just to point out you're extremely good at that. Most of our momentum in our meetings is because as soon as it's like, oh, I wonder what so-and-so, or if we need to coordinate, and right away you've asked that question and we can move on. And just that little moment you take in using that other channel while we're meeting, super effective.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it saves me having to store it all up here and just have it out somewhere in the world. It's also, I think Mark and I, we do this a lot. It's using your personal channel. So for example, I have a Hailey channel and you'll see it down here. I'll use that for reference. So sometimes if I want to save a link for later, or I want to make sure I take a note or something for later on, I can capture it there. And then finally, it's a great way to have a temporary gathering space. Even for this call, for example, the four of us, Jonathan, Mary, Mark, and I, have a Slack channel open for the four of us to communicate on the back end, just in case we have any questions or need to talk to each other, but of course don't necessarily want to do that over the live channel. And I mentioned we use Slack, but then we also use email sometimes because of course some of our customers are still using email and we need to meet them where they are, but Slack is awesome because it saves all of the information, so anybody who's joining a conversation can go back up and read it. And it keeps everything more instant and in real time. So it's important to agree what tool you're going to use so you're not having different threads going on in different places. So at Mural, just want to show you guys, we have lots of threads. Our entire company is on Slack right here, even though we have remote workers and we have some people in the office. We also have things sort of by topics. So we have anything from project specific to reporting bugs to, we actually have a Slack channel called Yelling, which is where you can go in there and if you have something that you just want to scream out to the world, you type it in all caps, and for some reason it just feels so much better after you do that. And then you also see we aren't just sharing text, we're sharing images and files and lots of rich information with each other. So yeah, Lucky, I know. And then you also share, of course, common interests with each other, like our doggos. So Lucky, you'll probably be featured in this channel right here, where we're talking about dogs. And it's easy, it's great also because it has lots of integrations too. So Slack is a good place to go. All right, cool. Mark, what's next?
Let's say I'll take over for sharing content.
Go for it.
Yeah, and I love it. A couple of people in chat have mentioned they have a yelling channel too. It's so cathartic. It's where I found out. It's where exactly. It's where all the real human beings show up. You're like, oh, right now you get a definite sense of someone, and to have the permission just to rant when you need to, but it's okay. It's taken in the right spirit. Yeah. All right. So I'll talk about sharing content. So you know, at Mural, we use a combination of tools here, but for most of you, it's going to be something like Box or Dropbox or SharePoint or Google Drive. So the reason why it's important to have this conversation is all too often teams are composed of members who have solutions that they just bring with them. All right, so I might join a team and I've been using Dropbox and someone else has been using Google Drive, and we just have everything wired up so that when we save or work, we've got our solution nailed down, but we haven't come together as a team and really identified what is the location where we're all going to share. And to the extent that you can control that, it's important for you to agree on one space because you want that single source of truth. You don't want the opportunity for everyone to have their own versions of documents because guaranteed when it comes time to actually send that deliverable, the chance of accidentally sending, you know, version 3.04b instead of 3.04c goes, you know, through the roof if the whole team isn't really focused on one area. Ease of access, right? So you can collaborate better when you know where to look for things and find things, and especially if you have teams, again, that are working across lots of different time zones. A lot of times, you know, you can communicate about what the deliverable is, but unless you're exceedingly thorough, every time you hand off, you might not actually remember to say where the document is. But if people just instinctively know it's got to be in this area, you remove those slowdowns and inefficiencies, right? And being very transparent in where the work is and the status of the work. We do quite a bit of work using the Google Suite for documents, and so we always know that the document exists in that area. It's probably within a folder associated with the team, and so it makes it very easy to find and interact and have those conversations, and see the comments and everything around us. So how do I do this? When you set it up for the new team members might be coming together, so populating it with some kind of team README might be helpful, right? This is also as your team grows and expands, or new people might start working with you. Having a list of the team processes and meetings and phone lists, or any of that kind of basic team fundamentals, document it once, put it in there, and then that's also a little trick so people get used to, if they need to find that valuable piece of information, you know, it becomes a forcing function for them to have that link handy and that repository handy. Nomenclature is very important. So what you name things, what directories are named, what subdirectories are named, is another part of this discussion about how you're going to stay organized. And that even cascades through into, you know, when you're working on documents, you know, just agreeing on when something's a draft, go ahead and have the name indicate the state of the document. These are little tips and tricks that if a team agrees or has this conversation, then the entire team can benefit from this this new shared protocol that just makes things much more efficient. Also consider having some type of dashboard, right? So in many cases, you have these various tools, you have different protocols on how to acquire the tool or pay for the tool or ask for a license or something. So all of these things that the team needs to reference and know, you might consider having either a single document, or in our case at Mural, we'll often have a project will have a mural canvas that kind of encapsulates the overview of everything, and it will link to other mural canvases for different team meetings or discussions or prototypes. But having that one document in that one share or accessible in one location is a way for everyone to know, I only need to go one place and then I can kind of unlock this project. Or if you work between multiple projects, that becomes very helpful when you need to kind of reconstitute a conversation from a couple weeks ago. One of the other maybe obvious things, but worth mentioning, is the way that the shared repository for the documents can work with other tools is all the time. If we're asking someone in Slack for some help or input, you know, just integrating those two places so that you can put a link to the document right there in the conversation makes this transition and this workflow even much more easy for people to jump in their busy schedules. All right, what are we talking about next? Staying organized?
Yeah, you gotta stay organized. That is a huge part of it. So even after all of your meetings happen, you need to make sure that you can track different resources and assignments the team has, especially when you're working remote. It's important to think about where everybody needs to look to make sure they know what to do. So staying organized is super important, because after a meeting, you make those action items, and staying organized helps keep people accountable. So we know what tasks need to happen and where next, and who needs to get that work done. Everyone also can trust and have peace of mind that the team knows what they need to do and when it's due. And there's also a lot of clarity. So if I know who's working on what part of the project, I can go ask them for help rather than trying to do it myself or just try and spend time figuring it out. So it's important to think about doing reminders for someone to review stuff before the meeting. It's also really important to think about the right project management solution for you. So maybe you don't need a giant, full-blown project management solution for your project, but just a simple Kanban board, something virtual where everyone can see something. Mural is honestly a great place to have that kind of project planning board. And then make sure that if conversations are going on in Slack or on your asynchronous messaging channel, you're keeping tabs on that and updating wherever you're keeping your project management tool or your project management tracker. So at Mural, we use a couple of different tools to do this. We have Jira, and we also have Asana, and where we're tracking bugs and issues. And so you can see everything's very clearly organized and nice and tidy. So anybody who's working on a different team has access and can view what's top priority for updating information or for fixing bugs. And then Mark and I actually quite often use Mural for our team alignment. So we use Mural. We have a tool called What's on Your Radar. It's a great method for organizing what is top of mind for us. And then also when we're meeting in real time to facilitate the conversation about what is our first priority, what tasks do we have to get done this week. And then you can see we also have a calendar frameworks in Mural, so we can see what's coming up on our radar. So,
I'll do a shout out too. So we have frameworks available. This one happens to be from Luma Institute. And I'm a Luma instructor as well, and it really is a wonderful way to do, you know, full-blown workshops, but even just something as simple as this What's on Your Radar allows us to individually report with our unique color what's right in the center of the bullseye and what's coming up next in that secondary circle and what might be further out on the horizon. And our meeting agendas basically are derived from this document. Like, we don't actually have to create an agenda. We just come in here and we say, okay, this stuff's at the center of the circle. What makes the most sense for us when we're here together in real time to discuss? Having the ability to drop in calendar frameworks also lets us see the information in multiple ways, right? So we can also see the context of what's important, but actually when's it due, and it helps us have this kind of you know, relatively complex interlaced set of elements around different projects and be able to see it really clearly. So invent your own process. You know, the tools are there for you within Mural to say what works best for you and your team to stay organized. Why don't, if I get a thumbs up from you, should I just go ahead and move over to the working visually?
Shift that over. Here we go.
All right, cool.
Last but not least.
All right, so this is one clearly that we're very passionate about, and this is, so you have these tools, you're connecting, you're able to move fluidly between asking quick questions in an asynchronous way, jumping into video calls for full-fledged meetings, or even just that moment of clarity. We know where to find stuff, we're committing to things, and we're having transparency about our progress. But when it comes time to actually understanding problem framing, trying to invent or improve or evaluate as a team, that typically falls to the job of the whiteboard in the room, right? And so when you're working remotely, you don't have that shared space where someone can get something out of their head, manifest it visually where everyone can see it, and in a way where it's not just passive, right? It's not like a PowerPoint where I'm just showing you my reality and you look at it and nod your head or thumb up or thumb down, but you can reach into that space. You can add a note, you can move stuff around. So the reason why this capability, and I'll just call it a capability because I think Mural has one of the most capable ways of working visually, but there are ways that you can start right now hacking with a shared Google Doc. I've seen, you know, there are ways to make it work, but the richer the environment you have, the more productive these conversations are going to be for you and your team. But this is where you co-create understanding. right? And the ability for everyone to have a say or to be able to reflect for a few minutes and get their ideas out into the shared space and then start sorting and organizing them and getting meaning out of everyone's collective point of view and that diversity in your team. There's nothing like being able to do that and actually starting to do the work in the meeting as opposed to talking about the work you're going to do in the meeting and then everyone going, not necessarily being aligned. You can actually start getting a lot of the work done in the meeting so that as soon as you step beyond that meeting, the work that you're doing is completely aligned with everyone else in the room. The co-creativity also builds ownership, right? If someone's always just presenting to me and I'm just a passive viewer, I'm not very engaged, right? I'll say, you know, let me know how I can help, but I'm not actually co-creating, co-understanding, and building that meaning together. It's also fun. You know, I won't lie. Even the most gnarly challenges that a team needs to work on, it's a lot better when you're actually co-creating and engaged together. The work just becomes lighter when you have more hands involved. Yeah, absolutely. So how do you activate this? You know, we have integrations that allow you, when you create a, you know, a Google meeting, for example, you can add conferencing tool of your choice in there. For us, we'd add a Zoom, but we'd also just add a Mural. So right away when people, that pops up on their calendar, they can get connected to the conference call and they click a link and we're right in that shared space. And that's a really amazing, quick way for everyone just to be right together and in that shared space. If there's something you're doing frequently as a meeting, stand-up format, or you have a meeting format or a retrospective or something, create a template. So Mural, like you're used to in Word tools and other documents, build it once and then share it. And even if you're, you know, we say digital first or digital last, but either way, go digital. So you can either start your meetings in a digital format, or maybe you're working on paper individually, but either way, use cameras, the iOS app and the Windows 10 app all allow being able to take pictures of those artifacts and put them in a digital space. So things don't get lost like they might in an email thread or a threaded chat conversation. And I want to be mindful of time because we're right at the half hour. It's a lot of information to cover. But I wanted to make sure that we do get to the poll. All right, so, and here I'll summon while you're getting that ready. So as a reminder, this is just the first conversation to have with your team, right? And maybe you've already got alignment around these capabilities that you need as a team. That's wonderful. So we're going to be providing links that give you access to the next two conversations to have. So the first one is actually how to build the roles and the rules and the norms and the behaviors for teams. It's important to have that conversation because tools alone aren't going to make an excellent high-performing team. Teams need to come together and really understand the norms, the rituals, the roles, who's going to do what. So that conversation needs to happen. The third conversation is around mining the genius in your team for the skills and the tools and the things that you already know how to do, and then start putting them in the context of making and designing meeting experiences that really turn them from something you dread attending into something that's really amazing. So we would like you to, you probably saw the poll pop up. So these first three conversations should get you up to a particular altitude where you now as a remote team have a set of capabilities and the level of growing comfort and confidence in using the tools. But beyond that, you have your own needs as a team to have discussions around HR development, or maybe you're in products and service design or business strategy, right? All of these things, we have been blessed with amazing customers that have done things in these fields and really shown us the capability of our platform, and we'd like to share them with you. So if you have interest in anything there, we're going to use this to follow on with more conversations and showing best practices around these things.
And I realize if those of you if you didn't see an answer in the poll that called to you, For example, Larry, I know you're talking about using it for university courses, since I know a lot of you are also coming from schools that are closed right now. Feel free to put that in the chat, and that'll be great for us to know as well.
Wonderful. So we also have some resources here we can share with you. We want to highlight the fact that the half hour is our information share. We want to make sure this information gets out to you. This recording will be made available as well. The half hour format hopefully is not too burdensome. If you found this useful for you to share it with your teammates, and that's not too much time. We're going to stay on for the balance of the hour for anyone who has questions or can stay online and engage in a Q&A. We're making this time available. We want to make sure that we answer outstanding questions that you might have. We also want to highlight that we invite you to join Mural for 90 days free. We typically, the starter is just 30 days. We're extending that because we know people need time to figure this thing out. Is this right for you or not? How you activate this is in the application in the lower right-hand corner. We have an integrated connection with support. So all you need to do is use that bot, start a conversation with our support team, and they'll get you connected with that. And we hope that, we hope it just helps your teams in this really interesting and challenging time. We appreciate you taking the time to join us together, and we want you to be safe, and we're here to help however we can.
Yeah, on behalf of Mark and me and Lucky and the rest of our team here at Mural, please be safe and healthy, and we are truly here to help. So have a wonderful day wherever you are in the world.